So I think it's always important to ask fundamental questions like who are you doing it for? What is the outcome that is expected? Right? And then go about it. Like it's not always about saying, let me design something, let me close everything and design something. No. First ask questions, get clarity on what exactly the outcome that you're expecting. And then how are you going to measure that? Like if you've said this is what you want, but then how are you going to make sure that that's what you wanted? Most of people don't know what they want. Right. So always understand like people are always interested in making more money. People are always interested in saving time. That's the key always going to be. Right? How can I save time? How can I make money? So if somebody has to make money, then what are the things? Like what are the goals or initiatives or metrics which are going to impact or move us in that direction?
Got it.
So for example, if security, say if you're looking at a security firm, right? They want to monitor the whole internet and everything. How are they going to save money? By making sure they're monitoring everything and by making sure they get alert very early on for any outages, any hacks or anything, right? That's how they will save money. Right. So that's the intent. So that's what you develop instead of developing the dashboards. So we developed the notification alert system. We didn't develop the big dashboard and stuff.
Want to know the journey of senior designer, interaction designer, product lead, AVP of design, head of design, and many more pioneers from companies like Google, Microsoft, Amazon, Frog, and many more. So stay tuned and hit the subscribe button and follow us on other social media handles as well. Today on the Hex Talk, we have one legendary designer with us. If I talk about his experience, everyone will be flabbergasted. He has worked with companies like Wipro, Infibeam, Prime Focus, Aditya Birla Fashion, Standard Chartered, Adobe, Solve, and currently working at Z Group. I think he covered all these sectors: IT sector, banking, fintech, retail, B2B e-commerce, and currently working with one of the biggest giant of media, Z Group. And his experience does not end here. He got the most trusted and valuable certification of design industry, HFI, Human Factor International. He got both the certifications, CUA and CXA. Having total experience of 13 plus years of experience, I think he made his mark and still nailing it is in career. On the Hex Talk, we had a super extensive conversation with him. So we split that podcast into two parts. On today's episode, we discussed about his career experiences, how anybody can transition within the sectors in his career, and why designers fail in their career. So today on the Hex Talk, welcome with me, highly accomplished designer, head of design of Z Group, Vatsal Chaoji.
Hi, what's up? Good afternoon. So, thank you so much for coming in here. First of all, taking your time up, and I think we connected at the right moment. You know, just 2 days before, and we're here. And thank you so much. Appreciate it a lot for coming back, for coming in here for the podcast.
Thanks for inviting me.
Perfect.
Looking forward to it. Yeah.
So, Vatsal, just if you could start with a quick snapshot of your journey into design. It's been more than a decade now since you started into this industry, and how has it been? How did it start?
So, I was an engineering student back in the day, and not good at that, by the way. So, during my engineering, I think I was started asking questions myself that, you know, why am I doing what I'm doing? Why am I existing? Am I going to be just like another engineer? Not throwing shade on engineers, but I still, even if it was engineering, what exactly do I want to do? Because I've always had a knack for being the drama queen, being the center of attention, being wanting attention, being right. Whatever I do, I want people to say, good, bad, whatever. Basically, I wanted people to say something about these things, right? And what I felt was whenever I was designing, people had some views on it. You did engineering, you did coding. After that, it's like, everybody else has done it. When you do design, even if 1,000 people other have done it, people still had some reactions to it, some emotions associated to it. Right. And that time, I think Facebook came in, Twitter came in, few other companies had come in. People started socializing, people started speaking outside of their context. Like, Orkut was high at that time when I was in engineering. So basically, all of these experiences and these products that were going about did shape my interest in how I can contribute to the whole of this. And I felt that I understand technology. I felt that I was able to read the room. I was able to understand what people are thinking to an extent. Obviously, not everything. I am not telepath, but I could understand what people are, how people are feeling certain things, right? So bringing that onto a table, and then I've always been mostly tried to make value in the ecosystem. Like for example, if I've bought, and this is me coming from not so great family or financial background, so it forces me to think if I'm spending some time, what's the value I'm giving to somebody? If somebody is spending time with me, what's the value that I can contribute to their life? But it has always been that maybe to a toxic level, but I try to always see if I'm able to add value to others. That got me thinking that, hey, if I put business and if I put people and if I put technology, and if I can find something to do with these three things, I think I might be in the right space. That got me into my first job. And during the first job, I think, so I went to the interview and then they said, can you bring your portfolio? And I was like, okay, what is the portfolio? Then I went back, they said, whatever work you have done, can you print it out on a good paper? And then, so for me, in my mind, I'm like thinking, okay, I have created designs for websites and have stuff. Now they're asking me to print that on an A4 sheet or A3 sheet or something. And then they're now asking me to present it. And I was a little skeptical, but I went by it because I had no other options. So I said, okay, fine. So I took the Nehru Place, printed those websites, went back, and then went to the agency and showed them the prints. And they said, okay, what is this? And I said, website, blah, 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 blah. I realized mid-conversation, I was like, hey, it's not working out, right? So I said, do you, I just asked them, can I show it on your computer? I said, okay. So are you going to show it on some platform, just images? I said, no, it's a working website. I went and showed them working website. They said, this is now they see value. So, okay. You can edit this. Yes, you can edit that. So the agency's concept was always promote and print, and then they realized, they can
also do this.
This digital medium. And then I showed them on their mobile also. So all of this is on mobile. So when people were designing for web, for this 960, and so I was also thinking how we can put that on a mobile and say, show it to them. They were quite surprised, and I was like, okay, fine. That's my first job. Wow, that's how I cracked it. And then at the time, I think it was pretty, I would say, not so mature ecosystem. So I was designing, I was coding, I was doing the database part, I was doing everything from end to end.
This is 2010 which you are talking
close
about.
2010, But the whole, at least at the agency, the ecosystem was not so mature, right? So they were, it was okay for me to code. Obviously today it has matured enough. It's very complex,
right?
No code systems are there are a lot of things are there, but that's how my journey, I think, started.
Wow. So you started as a UI designer back in 2010. and
I don't know. They used to call it web design or
a
something.
web designer or
back
something
then.
like that. Yeah, that's what was mentioned on
I was very avid reader of Smashing Magazine and A List Apart. These were the two platforms I used to always read about. And I think in 2013 or 14, they had published an article on atomic design. And I was like, I'm saying this is the key for scaling. And I basically digested it like everything. I made that's my part of blood in everything I do. So I componentize everything that I do, like
Wow.
from time to work to management to everything. Everything is
Wow.
componentized and templatized. So this is what is the template. Roll it for everyone.
That's amazing. Probably that's what you got a hang of design systems quite early on. Then
So unfortunately, I had a very bad experience doing that initially. I'll tell you why. So I was in infibeam.com,
yeah, right.
right?
That's a push button. Oh, there's no top.
So, and what I realized was we were in process of redesigning everything, saying, hey, let's redesign the whole platform, and we'll reduce the code and everything. So fine, great. We templatize the pages, but then that got me thinking, can we templatize the banners themselves? And we eventually got to a stage where we were able to templatize the banner, improve the productivity of the creative team, and eventually that led to letting go of some members of the creative team.
Oh.
And that got me, I don't know, it felt really bad.
Oh.
Because that was not the intent of why.
What do
Like,
I wanted to actually create value for?
And actually that got me thinking about the second order impacts of whatever we do. So it's not just about you do and you see productivity and say, look, good metrics and all of that.
Right.
But then what is the second order impact of whatever
Actually
that
do.
outcome will be, right? So whatever outcome will be, what will be the next step to do that outcome? What are we going to do with that outcome? And that is something that helped me shape very early on, and realizing by a very touching example that sometimes your intent is always good, but what is the second order impact of that intent? We should always look into. I think it's very important.
Basically, seeing the bigger picture when you see of that impact of whatsoever you're designing. Got it. And next, like from your first stint as a web UI designer, then you again switched through a company where you were doing some marketing stuff and
So back in Indore, so I got my health has not always been great.
Okay.
I didn't care then. I think that got me to where I am today. But not in terms of career, but in terms of what my current health is. It's not that great. So what it was, I used to eat outside and stuff like that, and then it got me pretty sick, and then doctor told me you go home and you rest for a month.
Okay.
So I rested for a month. Obviously, I got anxious to do. I was restless. Then I basis my parents and everybody. They said, find something in Indore.
Okay.
Where I was staying, and that time Indore ecosystem was not matured for web and everything. So I got a job in some advertising agency in doing print job.
Okay.
So I was doing print banners, hoardings, and all of this stuff. It was
Okay.
not, and the job profile was visualizer. I don't know. It's altogether new world for me. What do you mean by visualizer? What comes under that umbrella? What do you do? All of that is pretty. It's open, right? Somebody gives you creative, you visualize. Okay.
Interesting.
So in reality, I was also designing, not just visualizing, but designing.
But designing also.
Yeah.
Right.
And honestly, the agencies which are nationwide, like PwC and all that, they do, even like Ogilvy and all, they don't trust the people in our, tier 2, tier 3 cities. Like the way they trust people sitting in tier 1 cities.
Right, like
Right,
Bangalore
in
or
terms of
something.
creatives and all.
Right.
Because they have much bigger exposure. They see a lot of things being marketed to them. So they have better knowledge of what to do. Right? So it was always a second order thing. So some creative was designed at JWT, And then it goes sent to us saying if it is a larger, like a national brand like Airtel or something, right? It would be sent to us saying, this is the creative, just redo it for your context.
Got it.
So that, I think that is the time when I I had the knack for observation. So when I saw that happening, I said, okay, this is important. This is very interesting thing to learn, because it's not about translation, but it's about localization. That's very important.
Localization, right? Absolutely.
So, a lot of people think that, hey, if you really want to make people, products for tier 2 or tier 3, just do translation of what you do in English and then it get translated there. But that doesn't work. That never works. You have to localize it. Like, it needs to mean something for them. That's more important, right? So that is where it's very early years. So what I also see is that as a pattern, right? If you keep observing, there are enough examples in front of you to build that character of a designer.
Right. But do you really think that now is also the case where, when you talk about, coming from a tier 2 city like Indore, where exposure wasn't a big great thing, do you think it's still the case into the industry right now? Where, like, we're sitting in Bangalore, just surrounded by HSR, like big companies all around, agencies all around. But now, like, tier 2 cities have also, started creating ecosystems around technology, around design. What do you think? How has it changed? Like, if you've kept an eye on it?
It has progressed nonetheless, but there's a bigger problem of language barrier.
Okay.
People who have adopted English almost as close as a native language, they have moved on, they have progressed in the world. But people who still consider English as a second language, a lot of the knowledge is restricted to English language. Like, for example, there are a lot of research papers that are written, right? That you go through almost every week. We find some other research paper that gets published about psychology, about every other thing, and then you read those things and you improve your understanding of humans, improve your understanding of behaviors and patterns and all, right? But then if you look at that doesn't get translated to Hindi well, or that doesn't get translated to tier 2 language. It's not that people don't know it; it's that their learning curve for a specific article is much higher.
Got it.
So that's where it boils down to. I think if there are a lot of people who are in tier 2 cities and tier 3 cities who have adopted English as their first language or like a primary language, and they have contributed significantly to the ecosystem, and that's what I think it boils down to.
Got it. The next thing, you went to Wipro, and I think that was the first. That would have been the first UI gig. I'm just assuming because when I saw your LinkedIn, you had written a lot about Wipro as compared, what you had done at Wipro as compared to others.
I think I had a lot of time.
I don't know about that, but certainly it written a lot of Wipro which stood out for me. So how was Wipro? How were 2.5 years at Wipro?
So, okay, let me start at the very beginning, right? I was getting married.
Oh, okay, interesting.
Right? So everybody started around me started speaking, saying, where are you working? What are you doing? All of those kind of questions used to come, and that somehow pushed me to say, okay, I'll find a job. If I don't find it interesting, I'll come back to what I'm doing.
Got it.
Right. And incidentally, I found a job at Wipro, and it was paying okay for me. So I said, okay, I'll join that job. And when I joined, first time tax was deducted from my salary. It's like, the real income is something else. But that keeping aside, what I was tasked as was to design emails, right? And I never used to do, once I've done, I feel that should help me. I should be able to reuse whatever I've already done. Because if I'm not able to extract more of that, then for me, it's not job done right. Like, if you're not able to extract, like, for example, if you, okay, so at home, right? If you make 10 chapatis, right, and you only eat 4, what do you do with that rest of the 6? For me, throwing them away was never
a nice,
a nice thing to do, right? So next day morning, what do? You crush them and make, in Hindi we call it kushkura. So we make kushkura out of that, right? And then you eat it. So that becomes the breakfast. So every time something which is left over, which you've already like consumed, next day it becomes somewhere you mix something else and then you add something. So you make sure that you don't waste any of your stuff. So same thing used to happen. I used to design some emails, and then some designs were picked up, some designs were not picked up. That were again reused in the next iteration. Somewhere, some down the line, they get picked up. So that got me thinking that if I can make these small again components, see if I can reuse, make them reusable. Earlier I used to do 2 to 3 emails a day, then it became 20-30 emails a day.
Damn.
But it was very easy because everything was componentized. I used to get content, put it, and then publish it. Then it got me thinking to create something similar to MailChimp. I worked with one of the developer and said, okay, can we do this, right?
Nice.
So that people can just drag and drop. Then we said, okay, is there a way where we can automate this report where system on a periodic basis can generate this report and send it to our clients, and so we don't have to worry, so that I can do something else. This is something that I don't want to do.
This is probably the best thing that you would have, worked that on. I don't want to do this, but yes, I'll solve the problem for the company. I'll solve the problem for the company, but I don't want to do this.
Yeah. So that got me, that got somebody noticed in the Wipro consultancy services.
Okay.
Saying, oh, this is something very interesting that they're doing. So then that, they pulled me in for half a week. So I used to be half a week in Bangalore, half a week in Mysore, and doing this. And the job at Wipro consultancy services was that we have to design and develop apps for Facebook. That time, Facebook had apps.
Right.
So we used to design those micro websites, which were then part, which would then open up within Facebook apps and all. So we used to design that and develop that, because they knew that they got to know that I also developed. So then, so all of that, Facebook apps, Twitter apps, we used to develop Twitter apps, which would extract all of that Twitter sentiment and show sentiment to us to see, because at that time it was very early stages of Twitter.
Right.
So nobody used to understand that, okay, if we can extract that sentiment, we can actually understand what is the sentiment of what is happening on Twitter for our products.
Right.
So those are things very early on we did that, but it was for internal products only. We didn't publish as in publish to the public, but within Wipro we did those things. And that got me noticed at with security operations center.
Okay.
So it was the setup was, there was 16 or 17 huge monitors, right? And everything had multiple dashboards and stuff. So we have too much data, we have too much things to see, but we are not able to showcase it to the client what is the most priority. I said, okay, what is the most priority? And I said, we don't know. I said, okay, let's ask the clients. Let's ask the clients who is going to use this. So let's ask the clients. And then my boss went there and he came back and he told me this is the priorities. And then we coded and designed that and showed it to them. And they said, okay, yeah, this is what we were looking for.
Wow.
So I think it's always important to ask fundamental questions like, who are you doing it for? What is the outcome that is expected? Right? And then go about it. Like, it's not always about saying, let me design something, let me close everything and design something. No. First ask questions, get clarity on what exactly the outcome that you're expecting. And then how are you going to measure that? Like, if you've said this is what you want, but then how are you going to make sure that that's what you wanted? Most of the people don't know what they want. Right. So always understand that people are always interested in making more money. People are always interested in saving time.
Right.
That's the key always going to be. Right. How can I save time? How can I make money? So if somebody has to make money, then what are the things? Like, what are the goals or initiatives or metrics which are going to impact or move us in that direction?
Got it.
So for example, if security, say if you're looking at a security firm, right? They want to monitor the whole internet and everything. How are they going to save money? By making sure they're monitoring everything, and by making sure they get alert very early on for any outages, any hacks or anything, right? That's how they will save money, right? So that's the intent. So that's what you develop instead of developing the dashboards. So we developed the notification alert system. We didn't develop the big dashboard and stuff.
But probably sometimes it's also about what's the problem exactly, right? Like some people directly jump into the solution, which I actually see in designers and every it's with every field that, hey, this is the problem and here's the solution. And this is so admin that when I see sometimes, and we'll come this to the later part, that when you see portfolios of designers who wanted to, they always pick the first solution and that solution always works. But this is not actually the case. You really need to be problem centric first, like asking the right questions, in fact, right? Okay, this is what, you know, the user actually wants, because sometimes the user also does not know what they, you know, want in terms, they're not able to articulate it. But getting to that exact pain point, that probably we don't need a dashboard, we need a notification service. This is what we have for. That's primarily the journey.
Yeah. So I'll give you an old example, right? In one of our platforms, right, people were not able to remember with which login ID they used to log in and what was the password and stuff, right? So it got us thinking, like, do we send reminders on their emails? Do we send reminders on their mobile phone? How are you? And all that. Start addressing them by email IDs and stuff. Or we increase the session time for a year. Doesn't matter, right?
Right.
If there is no monetary value involved,
session time increasing is not.
Increase the session time up to probably a year.
Right.
And it will go. No? If whenever somebody comes in again, you increase from that day, keep it for a year.
Interesting.
So that's how you identify what the problem. Why do you want, like, again? So people are forgetting. Okay, the problem statement is people are forgetting, their names and user ID. And okay, but why do you have to? Again, the question is, why do you have to remember it? Right? That's the problem, right? Problem is not that people are forgetting. That's the problem, that people are quoting.
Right.
Why are you making them remember? That's the core of it, right? What's the intent of making them remember? What's the value of it?
What's the value?
So what will you get out of that? Nothing. So then why make them remember? So that's like stepping back, saying to figure out, okay, what the real problem is. It's not always like, hey, people are forgetting, let's remind them. No, that's not always the...
Yeah, like identifying what actually is, like why it's...
Yeah, you're right. And more importantly, I think it's about trying also. So when you try with that, then you realize, oh, that's not working. But don't always stuck to saying this is the only solution in life.
Right. Yeah, this is interesting. Like actually taking a step back instead of taking a step forward towards the solution. Nice, interesting. And next was Infibeam after Wipro.
Correct. So most of these products, whatever I was working with Wipro, were more corporate products. My stakeholders were corporates and everything. And something that I was realizing was that Indian ecosystem was growing, and it's been more than 5 years, 6, probably 5-6 years, close to 6-7 years.
6-7 years.
Flipkart came in, Infibeam came, all of these e-commerce platforms came in. And that was very early on when, design was not so much in the ecosystem of Flipkart, or in the ecosystem of all of these e-commerce players, but it was there. It was there. The value was not unlocked yet. And I was realizing that is an ecosystem where I would get to work at two things. One is work with data, and second is work with people. Right? People when I'm in people, I'll be able to do user interviews. I'll be able to reach out to people, try to understand what are their needs and everything. And this need thinking, this is very strange. But I mentioned, right, in college I was not that great. But there are few lectures which had a very strong impact on how I approach my work. There was one lecture by my professor named Sanjay Goel, right? And he talked about the need chart, Maslow's need chart, right? And it had a very deep impact on how I used to always, construct my designs, right? If people are not interested, how do I make people of, which is at a smaller value? Like, for example, this is a generic example almost everybody gives is a soap example, which is Lifebuoy soap versus Dove soap. Why would people want to buy a Dove soap? Right? It's because it's not about that they care, like they don't care about hygiene and all that. Hygiene is solved by I think Lifebuoy, but then how do you solve for a bigger problem, right? And there is a lot of needs which are not said outright. So that helped me shape my work at Infibeam. That I then mixed with atomic design, which is creating small sorts of atoms and creating libraries, and then allowing developers to then go berserk on that.
Nice, amazing. So how was it? So Infibeam primarily would have been a B2C space, right? And Wipro was more kind of a B2B space where you would have been interacting with different teams, different stakeholders. How is the experience different, like versus B2B versus B2C? And and in fact, companies where you get into, for example, when you're designing at Wipro, which is majorly you're doing design consulting for companies. How did design consulting differ from working at creating a product ecosystem and then actually working through it?
So if you ask me, I think the very basic difference is that when you're working with B2B, there are two things very important: time and money, right? Those are most crucial, right? But when you're working in B2C, right, there is something different about that. It's not always about money. It's not always about time. Sometimes you want people to spend more time on the platform. Sometimes you want them to spend more money on the platform. Right. It's not always about money and time. I think in B2C space, it's more emotional in B2C. It's more personal, and you're looking for creating delight when you're looking at B2C space.
Right.
And I think most of the experiences are driven towards that. And if they're not driven, they are not that much appreciated
or successful as well.
And it's not about people will pay whatever money you want, right? As long as you're delighting them, as long as you are giving them an experience which was not there before, right? People are willing to pay, people are willing to spend hours and hours. If you see in OTT space, right? When the world started, who will watch 8 hours of content? Who will watch 12 hours of content? Right? That was the question.
Right.
And then you heard stories about binging. Right? People started binging shows. They would wait for months and months to make sure that the whole season is there. Then on a weekend, I'll do it. Right?
I think Paris is behind the scenes. He's the binge watcher into our group. He literally puts up a show, watches it for 8 hours continuously. I don't get how people get. Like, I am also binge watcher sometimes for the shows that I like 3-4 hours. But yeah, true. Like, people are like, nobody could imagine that OTT platform applications would be a place where a person would just see the same screen for 8 hours continuously.
Yeah, and be okay with it. How is that healthy? Like, I don't get it.
Absolutely. Like, and in fact, right, creating delight is something in B2C which now
I think which takes the front seat. Right.
Right.
See, even if I'm saving money for you if you're a consumer, and even if I'm saving money, but if I'm not delighting, after a point you'll not be interested.
Right.
There are a lot of players out there, right, which are saving money to the T. But after a point, it just becomes a transaction. You're using this platform because there's no other cheaper alternative.
Right.
That's pretty much it. So you lose the emotional connect when it's all about money, specifically in B2C space. But when you're talking about B2B spaces, I think it's time and money takes the precedence.
Got it.
If you're saving time, if you're saving money, if you're making money for others, if you're figuring out how to, figure out time for others, then that's what
Nice.
my I think. So there are multiple differences, but
That's
if
what
I have to very concisely nutshell it, right? So this is what I think.
nice. I think that's a nice summary. Then you moved on interestingly to healthcare, Curious Health.
Yeah.
So
That-
Curious Health was something that you shifted to health. What
That
was
happened on a side note,
okay?
right? The more towards evenings.
Okay, got it. How was that experience?
So, one of my relative had come to me and said, he has invested in certain so and so product, and he wants me to look into it. I said, I'm actually working in something else. I don't want anything to do like professionally with it. So he said, yeah, go ahead, do what you've, in your spare time, you should see into it. I said, okay, fine, I'll look into it. So when I looked into it, I looked at this product. It was product of healthcare. Basically, I think the product was way ahead of its time.
Okay.
At about 7-8 years ahead of its time. So idea was to create a complete ecosystem for healthcare. For example, somebody who is sick, say old, right? And you're working in office. Is there a way where you can book an appointment, and at the right time the cab comes? It has a nurse alongside. The nurse helps your parent to get into the car, takes them to the hospital. Now, the commute is scheduled so that they don't have to wait not more than probably 10-15 minutes at the hospital. They do the visit. Pharmacy gets delivered at your home without you reaching to pharmacy, without you paying to the pharmacy. From hospital, you take your elder and you go back, let them rest at home, where all of these things happen, and all of these things like ECG and everything will happen at home, and your diagnosis, everything will come at home. The next consultation, you don't have to visit the doctor; it will happen on video call. Basically, I think it was way ahead of its time in terms of the ecosystem maturity. But the idea was an end-to-end service for people in need, right? In terms of healthcare.
Got it.
They'll also partner with health insurances. They'll also partner with various other healthcare programs. So you don't, the whole healthcare has been taken care of. You don't have to worry about going to the doctor, then reaching to the lab, realizing you have to submit the sample next day. Or you have forgotten medicine, or somebody has forgotten medicine, or there is an X-ray report, but when you go to the X-ray machine is not working.
Okay.
And next time you go and you realize, X-ray machine is working now. There is a long queue. So with elders, it was a very big hassle, right? That if you have to go to pharmacy, that particular medicine that doctor has prescribed, it's not available. All of this is realities of our current also healthcare system, right? But the idea at that time was to fix this using data. And to then further, which is a second order thinking, is to figure out what is the right places, do lots of campaigns, and based on what is the specific demography, what is the kind of diseases, what is the kind of problems they have, basis that set up a clinic which is relevant to that geography or locality.
Got it. Basically, intelligence also.
Don't just put a clinic for the heck of it.
For the heck of it. Right.
Do a lot of healthcare campaigns, try to understand from data what is the kind of problems they have that locality has, and then it makes sense to put the right set of doctors in that locality.
Nice.
At the right place. Otherwise, it's all just hit and trial, right? That
So basically, intelligence, market intelligence also.
true.
It's market intelligence and how do you place the services at the right spot. Like from this experience, just getting your
And it
thoughts.
was more of a pro bono thing. So the idea was to help the whole Indian ecosystem figure out this, because this is a very basic problem in India. If you find hospitals, they're all next to each other, and if you don't find hospitals, they're like they're miles apart. Like they're 10 kilometer away. Like, what's the point of having 10 kilometer away hospital and then you have 5 hospitals right next to each other?
Right next to each other, right.
What's the point of that? Hospitals should be equally distanced,
Right.
and they should be available at all times.
Right,
When you
right.
reach hospital, then you have another set of 10,000
It's not a
forms to be
commercial
filled,
service,
right?
it's an emergency service. Hospitals are actually an emergency service which needs to be present at equal distance. Because generally, commercial services are catered together, like when you see burger joints, etc., because they are the same set of consumers for amenities. But healthcare is actually an emergency, but still, it hasn't been solved or into
And
India,
then
which I
at
feel.
every hospital, instead of like, we could have something like an Aadhaar card, right? With just one health card, I just go and scan this health card,
And everything.
and irrespective of whatever hospital, my health card is with me. All of that data is not democratized. That data should be democratized, because see that data is very helpful in the times of emergency, in the times of everything. I can't be producing a digest of history of my mother saying, "Oh, this is a new hospital." Now 60 years of data. Look into that. What is happening?
Right.
Or 10 years of data. Like, even if you have 10 years of data, somebody has to go through ailment of what is happening. Instead of that, we should have something like an Aadhaar card saying, "This is my health and this is what is happening."
Got it.
And
got
doctor
it.
should be able to use that data to further diagnose the problems.
Right.
Right now, it's even
It's
today,
opening up. Like there have been companies which have been collating data, but since there's no one big centralization,
correct.
like even if you go with one company, then you have to go to the hospital that company is actually enrolled with, so that they can share that data. So that's how it is also currently. It hasn't been solved as a problem.
Yeah.
But from that experience, is there a framework that you have in mind to actually see ideas that are ahead of their time? Like, is something that as a founder also, sometimes I think that there are two things very important for a product to succeed, which is probably, and the biggest thing is actually timing. That if your product is
market fit is always important.
PMF, if it isn't there, like, you can't really, the product wouldn't work no matter how good looking your product is and, how usable it is, how fast it is. But if it does not have the right timing, it won't work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think I didn't have the idea back then on how to figure out if a product is, ahead of its time or already too late. Right. I think even now, I don't think so. I have as much maturity as I should to deduce that. Saying, is it going to be a product market fit? The best way to approach it, I think, is to figure out the right geography. Say, for example, if you're in India, right, you have to find the right geography which is a little ahead of its in the curve in India in terms of specific technology adoption or say ecosystem. Say, for example, you're talking about, say, fashion industry. You can't do that in Bangalore. You have to be at the right place. You can't be in Bangalore trying to sell some kind of fashion product and assuming that that's gonna work. You have to be in Mumbai probably, right? Because that's the place where people care about those things. Right. At Bangalore, you not find as much people care about how you dress. Right? They care about from
Glass door.
Yeah. Here, I think. Probably last mile deliveries.
Last mile deliveries, absolutely. I think last mile delivery.
Yeah, I think they care about those things a lot. They care that they don't have to. They should, like, they always joke about, like, oh, it's a great weather, but nobody wants to go out of their home to
because
get
there's so
anything.
much traffic. Right.
So I think it's always important that you have to figure out who and what geography is gonna probably have the intent of tasting your product. Once you get your first tasting, I think you might get an idea of who who will like it or who will not like
Got
it.
it.
And I think that coincides with your mega trends and micro trends of what is happening globally, what's happening in India, what's happening within pockets of these like what's happening in Bangalore, what's happening in Mumbai, what's happening in Delhi, and stuff like that.
Yeah. Talking about fashion. Next was the Birla fashion, if I'm not wrong, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So what about it? Again, like shifting to e-commerce, if I'm not wrong. It was e-commerce.
E-commerce,
It was e-commerce. Right?
It was their e-commerce at I think Infibeam, and I had got the taste of e-commerce, and I was like, this is something that I like, and I think I want to continue with this. And Aditya Birla happened because so one thing that I've always done in whatever I've done is I've invested in education, myself as well as my kids, right? I focused on education. I said, I've realized that education has the best ROI.
Right, absolutely.
Hands down.
Absolutely.
Hands down.
Absolutely.
You invest in education, hands down, it has the best ROI. Everything else is all ठीक है, it's there.
Mutual fund सही है, but ठीक है, पहले education में कर लो.
जो अपने education में डालोगे ना, so it's just manifolds. Like ऐसा 10x 20x नहीं होता है. It's seriously 100x, 300x, 400x. That's how it works. Right. So I invested in my education. I was not able to fund it. So, I anyways went ahead, took a loan and did that. And that forced me to find another job which could help me pay off my education.
Got it.
Right. So I did that, and then I moved to another company,
Got it.
which was Aditya Birla. When I joined, it was trending.com. That was the name of the platform, which used to sell all combined products across all the brands, right? And when we went through journey from trending.com to having each brand having its own presence and realizing that the real number volumes will happen through e-commerce platforms, but the brand that will be created will happen through these respective bespoke brand omni-channel experiences. Why I say omni-channel? Because those experiences are also available in stores.
Absolutely. Right.
So we created those platforms which were omni-channel, which means we created them for mobile, we created them for respective stores, storefronts, and we created them from online. And like from online, you can go website and buy the stuff. Apart from that, we were also able to order online, try at store, or vice versa. You order from store and you get home delivered or things like that. We built those experiences back in the day. This is, I think, 2015, 16, somewhere around that time.
Right.
And we basically created that whole ecosystem again. The idea was to create that brand association. It was not about building another e-commerce.
Got it.
Right. So that's how it manifested into, I think, seven platforms.
Wow.
So platform, like the whole
that was all
backend system was
basically
same.
creating from scratch.
So basically Trending was the backend system.
Got it.
But on the front end, it was all the respective platform. So my constraint there was that the code was same. So the components were same. Only the look and feel was up for grabs.
Got it.
So with that as a constraint, that's when we worked with brands and respective their brand managers, marketing managers to understand what that brand means and how we can extend their brand onto the digital spaces. So it not being just a platform or just a website, but rather an extension of their brand. So they had those in-store viewing experiences. We created that more of a experience rather than more of a e-commerce, and the metrics were also about more discovery, more because I think at that time not a lot of people were interested in buying online, specifically clothes, and size was biggest issue. I think that time around Myntra came up with return in 30 days or something.
It's still a very big issue. Return is something that actually people
and they're not able to solve. That's a big issue.
Myntra has tried that if you actually look, like what some people do is they order in bulk and then they wear something and then they return it. So what Myntra has tried doing is that if they detect that behavior, they actually put you under a shadow ban kind of a thing. That okay, you can't order this much, you can't order and whatsoever it is.
Yeah.
So that's how it has been.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the next was Prime Focus, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Prime Focus. So I think by the end of it, like by the end of the journey, around 1.5 years, 2 years, it took for us to create all these platforms, and it was working very well functional. In fact, I don't remember if last I checked, it was still the websites which we had created in 2015. They are still almost the same as they were back in the day. I think that I feel is a good timeless achievement.
Timeless achievement.
Right?
They were so much ahead.
In our world, right? In digital space, if some website stands as is for about 5 years and 7 years and still
are still near profit and optimization KPI. So
so I think that solved the problem. And almost everybody in the team moved on to other pastures to figure out what more they can add value to something else. And so that got me to Prime Focus, where it was another different world of media, right? I was exposed to how content is created, right from the synopsis up until post-production, like the whole process of how it happens, right? And we investigated like what are the bigger problems and how we can. So workflow was one of the bigger problems that we worked on, and another big problem was subtitling.
Okay, interesting.
So you know this, but during subtitling is where the piracy used to happen, because back in the day subtitling tools were localized. So what you had to do was you had to download the content into a pen drive or something, right? And you had to plug it into everybody's system who would then subtitle the content.
Okay.
And if you're doing that, there is highly likely chance
that somebody would take it.
Somebody would copy it and take it away, right? That was the biggest reason for piracy.
Okay.
And this is 17. Yeah.
17.
That was one of the biggest reason for piracy, right? And almost it contributed to about 50-60% of pirated content.
Damn. Oh.
Right. Subtitling and dubbing are the places where it used to be such bad. And that got us thinking, like, why can't we make an online product when people don't need to download?
Oh.
So we stopped that. Second, we introduced Cortana into our product, right? And which helped us do first level of subtitling.
Okay.
And on top of that, we basically so we mixed these two, and we introduced a workflow management where we were able to assign people jobs, saying this is what your job is, this is what your job is. So no more need of one person whose job is to just assign work to people. Basis availability, right? So these three things combined, our productivity, like you won't believe, like this was news surprise to me that for half hour of subtitling, you would require 4 to 8 hours.
Oh.
Of time to do, right?
I
and we reduced it to 4 hours, somewhere around 4 hours. And it was supposed to get to 2 hours, but I think I had left after that.
Oh, that's nice.
So, but the idea was to reduce that time. Again, whenever B2B space, reduce time
and money.
Save money.
Again, like the
Piracy,
core concept.
save money.
Sure. Yeah, good concept actually.
Yeah. So we figured that out. We got the award at BAM shows for those things, for workflow management, as well as for this subtitling tool, basically. One of the first subtitling tool which was done online. And that got us to, like, for subtitling now you can do, obviously earlier there used to be only one place you could do subtitling from. Now you could do from everywhere.
Wow.
So that was the product. I was lucky that I was working with, one of the best product managers at that organization. I think that helped a lot.
AI also has been a very big game changer into that space. So
True.
like you can do automatic subtitling now. How they've been doing audio processing. It's been
Again, subtitling also, when you're talking about automatic subtitling, right? It is a bigger problem is, one is it can't understand a lot of accents. Second, when there are multilingual conversations, that also is again a big problem.
Right. Right.
So back in the day, Disney had introduced IMF coding method.
Okay.
That was also very interesting. What it was that, see, if you're in Japan, right? Even the text on the Disney movies would change to Japanese.
Right.
Like even the symbol on the door would change to Japanese if you're watching Japanese content.
Wow.
And how they used to do is, they used to not master the whole thing.
Okay.
They used to only create that small segment in multiple languages wherever there are text across the content. And when somebody has to stream it or when somebody has to produce it, they will say select this option and then everything in that option will go get produced. So that saved a lot of space online and everything.
Got it.
I was not involved in any of that, but I was very close to that, and that got, like, for me also, that the same concept, right, about how can you componentize everything in
And then put it forward.
Yeah.
Right.
So instead of, like, if you look at all of these production quality content, right, which is outside of the world, it takes about, for 15-20 minutes, it takes about a TV space.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I've heard about it. I haven't got an idea about
So
this, but
online, it's like one TV space is a huge thing,
huge thing, right?
but it only one content with one. So imagine that producing content in 40 languages.
40 languages plus hours of content.
You're done.
Hours of content. Like, yeah, that's
huge content
that's
to
huge.
manage.
That's huge content to manage.
So
Amazing.
instead of that, having 40 into one TV, that's rather only have few, one have a one big file
and
then
then segment it out. Got it. That's it. And then interestingly went to a bank. Standard Chartered happened. If I'm so
I said, everything is done now. I want to go to some place where I want to have little more. So in all of these experiences where I worked, right, everything was little, I would say, unorganized.
Okay.
To my liking, right? Why I say so is that everything was, hey, symptomatic, saying this is the problem we need to solve. Okay, we solve that. It was very situational and symptomatic, right? If we want to redesign the whole platform. Okay, symptomatic. Why do we want to do it? Because it's been years. But that's not always the reason, right? Why do we want to go becoming brands and everything? But we want to, because that's that will increase the brand presence. And so, okay, but why? So
the question why?
Fourth why? Third, fourth why? It's like blank. Okay, but we want to do it. So okay, if that's the case, we do it. But still, I'm not able to
get to that.
Yes, but when you're looking at larger organizations, especially multinational organizations like Standard Chartered or some, the intent is first identified. Like, why are we doing this? What is the money? How are we going to make money? Right? And again, save money, save time. That thought carried forward to find something which is where I can understand the concepts of money. Like, what exactly. When I say concept of money, when we always say save money, but then how do you save it? What is the best way to do it? What is the worst way to do it? What happens from the inside world, in the financial world? What happens in that world? And I've always so I don't know if you played Age of Empires or not.
I have.
In the early ages, in the early years, right? I used to play a lot of
Age of Empires.
These kind of games. And in Age of Empires, there was, in the tutorial, it used to always say, keep exploring the map. And in a very Scottish accent. And I used to, like, for me, it has always had this, keep exploring the map. It used to always have that. Then I will go somewhere, let's explore. What bad can happen?
Got it.
At the concept, I'm always about, how can I design? How can I improve that experience? How can I save money? How can I save time? And all of these are always part of that. So that happened in Standard Chartered as well.
Got it. And what was different at Standard Chartered? And like, what was your role? What were you doing?
So my role at Standard Chartered began in working with few products which were for creating some dashboards, creating some, some kind of a reporting system where people can see what is happening at what region and all of that, right? Then with Standard Chartered Ventures had proposed to ask the whole of Standard Chartered to propose certain ideas for businesses to make sure that we create new business ventures in India, right? Which can help our SMEs, which can help our... So in this context, SMEs are small and medium enterprises.
Okay.
Right? Generally, SME means subject matter expert. But in this context, it is that.
Yeah.
So then that got us to create small team within our team, and we then focused on creating value and started creating proposals, presented that at multiple levels, presented all the financials and everything, designs, like all technology design, all that we presented, and that's got us the funding for this. And like that was my that's how I found goals, saying this is what I want to do, this is what I like doing, creating value, right? So and then I think that was the time when I realized, okay, now I've done a lot of work individually. Now to learn and instantly Adobe came in as an opportunity. I was like, you can't pass on Adobe. You have learned basically everything from that organization from the beginning of your career. Back in the day, there was no Figma, no Sketch, nothing was there. We used to design on Photoshop. We used to design on Illustrator. And, like, there was the early tools, right? And how can you pass on something
which
such
has
big?
Right.
So
then
that
Adobe
came in as like, okay, fine, this is what I'm going to do.
Interesting.
So at Adobe, it was like, in terms of the value that I was creating, here I was creating apps, here there were designs for apps, here I was creating websites, like I had all the control. At Adobe, I was a piece in the cog, but much bigger vehicle.
Much bigger ecosystem, right?
Much bigger vehicle, much mature vehicle, right? Trying to understand what is happening at each and every stage of design, right? The only thing that hit me was the speed.
Okay.
So before Adobe, when we were pitching, right, we were pitching almost every week.
Okay.
Right, every week we're trying to experiment with, iterate with designs. Every week we're trying to do something new, right? Trying to figure out some different solution. At Adobe, the expectation was not that much, and that like. I had to take a step back because my boss asked me to design something, right? For I don't remember. I think I believe it was for Rite Aid or something.
Okay.
Right? And he expected me to do it in a week, but basically I did it in a day, and then I was like, when I showed it to him, hey, this is my first cut and everything. And then after discussion, you realized it's done. It's not, there's nothing required on that. And then I asked him, should we send it? He said, no. We'll wait for a week to send it. Otherwise, what will...
we did tell. Okay, this is interesting. but do you think at large organizations, at mature organizations like Adobe, and when I also talk to people who are at Amazon, etc., decisions usually take a lot of time. Like even a small change in design takes a lot of thought by different teams, different perspectives, which does not happen into like a company like Infibeam or probably a Tamil Fashion. Like, is that so? Was your experience, or
that's true? See, I'll take an analogy from a road, right? A bus which has a responsibility of 40-50 people drives slow. Right? A car which has a responsibility of 6-7 people drives fast. They take a little faster. When you're taking higher risk on a motorbike, you're driving even faster. Right? So it depends on how small your teams are. The higher you're willing to take the risk.
Okay. Yeah,
and the faster you are able to move.
Right.
But when you have to move a much bigger
team, right? Yeah. Absolutely.
And in cases of planes, You can move so many people,
Right.
but then you need a lot of fuel to move it.
Right.
You need a lot of change in inertia to move it.
Right, absolutely. I was discussing one of our mentors. He had worked at Boeing, and then he had come through that. He said that I don't understand this thing, that when I was at Boeing, right, we couldn't even afford a 0.1 mm. This and that. And these days, when I see designers, are like, "अच्छा ठीक है, गलत हो गया, delete करके फिर से कर देते हैं." You know, that
So the
precision is
risks are higher when like you're allowed to take a risk, higher risk when when you're working in a smaller organization
right.
where what's going to go back. Like you always ask this question, right? Worst case scenario, what will happen?
What will happen? Right. Absolutely. So nice.
And I think younger teams, younger organization, they take higher risk, and old teams refrain from going that way.
Got it.
Maybe in their mind they've already figured out solutions, so they don't want to take unnecessary risks.
Right. Absolutely.
In that context.
Nice. So next was solve.
Yeah. So my manager, who was back at Standard Chartered, the same guy, he said he was talking with the team, which that's the same company that got funded, right? At Standard Chartered Ventures. Solve is a part of Standard Chartered Research and Technology.
Okay.
So it's the same company. So they only called me back and said, why don't you come back and solve this problem, because we had established everything. But then for the year and a half, it was not working out for the team. Right? They were not able to churn out what we used to churn out within a. So the expectation is very set. Like every week we are able to do that. But then when again, larger team not able to figure out the core direction. There too, we started from, like, when I went there, first thing, and it was, let me have a conversation with all the stakeholders, trying to understand. This is also very important, right? A lot of people understand design as just understand users and that's it. Right? But I think more important than understanding your users is also understanding your team. I'm not saying you should ignore understanding your users, but you should always also take cognizance of who you're working with. What are their expectations? What would they need to, or how will they be able to empathize with you? Saying ki yaar, okay, I understand this will take so much time, or this will take so little time. Right? So all of the designers every day used to come office, and then, like before me, every day they used to come in office and decide what they will have to work on. So that's, like, for me, it's a scary position to be in, right? Because you are not like, you don't have visibility what are you going to work in the whole week or the whole month. How are you going to plan for it? How are you going to say, okay, how are you going to strategize for it? Strategy though is like
for the
miles apart, very, very far away, right?
Very far away.
If you have to work on strategy, first you have to know what are you going to work today, date, after, and all of those sequences. Right? So that's where we started. So we started, okay, let the team be in the room, right? As an audience, call in other teams one by one. Ask from them, what is the problem that you face today from design team?
Okay.
And I asked them, you may feel offended. You may feel irritated. You may feel uncalled for. But it is important that you listen, because that's the perception that is there. It's important that you listen. So you may feel, I didn't do that, or I didn't do this. It's okay. That's a perception that you have created in the organization about your team. So expect that. Sit there and understand and listen. And try to first listen, right? Then only you'll be able to solve the problem. Otherwise, you can't solve it.
Right.
Now developers will come in, they'll say, hey, pipelines are dry. Now we don't have anything to code, right? And like, I understand. The team also understand, right? But team also does not have any visibility as to what to work on.
Right.
Which means somebody has to give them visibility.
Right.
So then we reached out to product saying, but design doesn't work on map varieties, design doesn't this, blah, blah, blah. All of these kind of issues, right? So then you say, okay, how can I enable that? How can I figure out that? So then we created a public as in within the organization dashboards, right? Dashboards, I think they were task boards,
Okay, interesting.
right? And I started asking people every day to say, what are you going to work on today? If you don't have visibility, come to me. If you have visibility, you continue working on what you're working. And then we worked on that one individual and said, okay, this is the product that you're going to be working on. This is what you need to work on. Figure out your users, go to the market and all that. So we did that. But again, fundamental question, like why
are we doing this?
What are we doing? Why are we doing?
Why are we doing this? Yeah.
Who are we doing it for? Ask those fundamental questions, and then you can't solve all the problems.
Right.
Solve problems which are then highlighted, and then focus on those problems that you.
Got it. That's nice. Yeah, at organizations, which I also feel that many when I talk to designers who come into the industry, they're like, yeah, we working in teams. There's so much of stakeholder management, but it's really essential as a designer because when you're solving problems, right? You really need to take perspectives from everybody who's involved in it.
Yeah. Even if you're not taking perspective, right? More than they should trust you. They should trust your judgment.
Right.
If a developer does not trust your judgment on design, right? They would try to change it because they have the control.
Right.
And then you will be going back and forth in trying to make sure that whatever you design versus whatever has came out as development, right? And then and sometimes QC will judge on your behalf, and they would release the product, and when the product is live, you're like, but this is not what I designed. This has come out. And how did they send it out without asking me?
Asking me, right?
Because you didn't ask them first.
Got it. Interesting. And then you back into media with Z. Then I think, but after Solve, then
so I solved the problem at Solve. Senior leadership change. And then what I was trying to solve was if I took cues from Curious of creating a whole ecosystem for healthcare. That's why I like the products like Chat GPT.
So your work around Z now, like in the past year or so, like what do you do at Z?
So in the last year, I think I've built a team.
Okay.
My major focus was to build a constructive team.
I'm sure you've built the design team at Z. What do you actually look into a person when you're hiring? When you're looking at a designer to join your team, and I'm sure you would be flooded with applications for a single role. The industry says that you get like hundreds and hundreds of applications. How do you cherry pick?